Hello guys, welcome to the beginning tutorial for Blender. This should be what you see when we load in. You probably won't see any of these recent files, but you will see this on the left side, and I'm going to go into it. So we're just going to go into General, start a new file, and this is what we've got. This is the opening scene for Blender. Okay, so I'm back. I just had to install an add-on so you guys can kind of understanding what I'm doing when I'm doing it. If you look down here on the left now, there's like a little mouse. You guys can see what I'm doing, the shortcuts, and as I'm doing them in person. So I guess we could start with how to move in Blender. Um, so typically you start out like maybe something like this in the beginning scene. Use the middle scroll wheel to pan around an object. Okay, and this can actually be found in all the shortcuts that I sent in week 1. So use a scroll wheel to pan around an object. You can also, if you have a numpad, you can also press the numpad and you can go to different views of the angle. So you got forward, side, top, and bottom. And then 0 is the sorry, my 0 button is broken. 0, which is the camera view. Now if you want to pan, right, so we could go here, and instead of wanting to break this, I shift and then I middle click and I can pan around here like this. And these are the main ones that you use, right? Middle scroll and shift middle click. Those are the most used ones. Now, as you can see, there are 3 objects in our scene right here. One of those objects is a cube. This is literally just an object in the scene. It doesn't really provide anything other than a visual representation of something. And then we have our little sun. So this actually applies light to the area so that you can see the cube. And last but not least, we have the camera. This camera, like I said before, if you press 0, you can use it as a real camera. It's a real virtual camera. And you can move it around and pan it and make it rotate and stuff to look at the object at different angles. Now, if you look over here, if you've ever been in Photoshop or anything like that, this is our layers menu, basically. So you can have different collection of objects. This is a folder. And within that collection of objects, they each have different, they are objects within that collection. So now that we're done with what's in the scene, we're going to be going over let's go over, I guess, just this top part right here. So we got file. This is how you open and create new files. Edit allows you to edit the files. Go down here to preferences, change your preferences if you'd like. Render. We'll be getting into rendering later, but this is how you will render out your object. We've got window, which if you want, you can pull one of these windows out and make a new window for it. I prefer having my setup like it is now. I just like it this way. And help. If you get stuck, you can kind of go to this help bar and it should bring you to several websites to figure out what your issue may be. Layout. So this is the layout menu. These tabs up top are different forms of the windows. So layout mode shows you kind of, what we're in right now. Modeling mode, which is a little different. The timeline's gone. We don't have a timeline here, but everything else is the same. Sculpting. Sculpting, now we're in a different view. We can see an object, but it's not necessarily within this grid-like view. UV editing. This is for textures. You can put an image here and you can put that image over a 3D model. Okay, so next up we've got, skipping over that, we've got texture paint, which basically this is UV unwraps this model and you can texture paint it. For example, I can get a blue. There we go. So as you can see, I created a UV map of this 3D modeled object, and I can draw on it on a 2D surface. And if we want, we can actually even make it all one color. Hold up. Cool. All right, next up we have shading. So this is another way of coloring our 3D models. Instead of using texture paint or UV editing, we could do something called shading. And this utilizes the node editor. This can get very, very complex. So for the remainder of the tutorial, I'm just going to basically keep this simple because you can do a lot of things with this, and I think it can confuse a lot of people. Another thing we have is animation. So we can see that the animation tab helps you kind of figure out what's going on, specifically for animation. You've got the camera, what the camera view is viewing, and then you've got the time bar down here, and I can scroll. So what I can actually do is, hold up. Put that on the object. So I put this little move thing on the object, the move tool, and I'm just going to insert keyframe on location, rotation, and scale. And then I'm going to move it to 20 seconds, and I'm actually going to move it back, and I'm going to do the same thing. Insert keyframe, location, rotation, and scale. Boom. And now we have an animation of a cube moving. So this screen helps with animating. Next up, we have rendering. So this is the screen that will pop up whenever you begin to render. It will render each individual frame on this screen. Compositing, so these are extra. After you finish rendering it, you can add like effects on top of it, and that will make it look a little bit better in the final phase. And we have geometry and scripting. Scripting, I honestly don't know that much about, so we will not be playing with that. And also geometry nodes can get confusing. It's as if not more confusing than the node editor. All right, so we'll go back to the beginning, going back to layout. Going back to layout, we also have these right here. So on top of having all these different layouts for you to be utilizing, you also can have these different viewports. Right now we are in the solid viewport, so this isn't the rendered viewport. There's also this should be called the wireframe viewport. This one is called the solid viewport, like I said. And then there's this one, which is, I believe is the, material preview viewport. And then there is the rendered viewport, which if you stay too long on the rendered viewport, it will eat up a lot of your processes. So make sure to stay out of that. Usually the least intensive is going to be in order your wireframe, but obviously you're going to need to see your surface of your object to model it. So, all right, moving forward, we have kind of these two different tabs over here. We have the layers tab, which I went over, essentially just a layers tab from Photoshop. And over here we have different tabs that you can kind of add in, right? And the most one we will use is probably the rendering tab. This is to edit your render. This is to edit your scene. This is to edit the world, edit certain collections, edit specifically the object, Then these are materials. These are modifiers. Basically, what you get when you apply a modifier, it changes how an object is rendered. Particle emission, physics. There's lots of cool physics stuff. Like we could probably turn this into like a piece of water or something. Constraints, data, material, and textures. And the ones we'll be messing with most, like I said, is probably going to be the render tab, the output tab, the modifier tab, and the material tab. And everything else we won't really worry about because there's a lot of stuff on here. It can get very confusing very easily. On your left, you also have all these tools, and in each of the different tabs, the tools change because you're doing something that's different in each one of the tabs. All right, so like this is the sculpting tab. We could go in there and we could like make lines and stuff. There's 8 vertices here, so you can only mess around with 8 vertices. Whenever we have more vertices, maybe I could show you kind of how to edit like an object. And if this ever happens to you where it's not focusing on the object, it's using your viewpoint as a camera, I really hate that. But tab the object, press the tilde key, and then say view selected, and then there. All right, that's going to be it for going over the basics of Blender and kind of how to use and what everything really is. So I'll see you guys in the next one.